9. Gregory Bender. Jessica Devmani met 42-year-old Gregory Bender online in 2009. He was 20 years older, but she was nevertheless drawn to the hedge fund manager's charismatic personality, and the pair eventually got engaged. Several years into their relationship, Bender underwent a procedure at an Orlando hospital. When Devnani went to visit him, she encountered a woman named Damara Sanchez, who identified herself as Bender's wife. Until then, Devnani had no idea that her longtime partner was married. She later told CBS News that she was shocked and devastated by the news. A few days later, Bender contacted Devnani and said that he was only married to Sanchez because it helped her son get into a better school district. She agreed to take him back on the condition that he divorced his wife. But Bender kept stalling, and Devnani ended the relationship for good. When she moved on and began seeing 25-year-old Patrick de la Cerda, Bender stalked and harassed the man to the point where the couple obtained a restraining order. The alarming behavior continued for months before de la Cerda was found shot to death in his home in early 2018. By then, Sanchez had divorced Bender. When she learned of the murder, she'd turned over a handwritten plot she'd found detailing his sinister plans. It was enough to secure a search warrant for Bender's home, where police found another handwritten murder plan and other evidence tying him to the crime scene. He was found guilty of first-degree murder in 2021 and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. 8. Cat West. In early 2018, stay-at-home mom 42-year-old Cat West was found murdered across the street from her Collier, Alabama home. It was highly unusual, to say the least, for a partially nude corpse to appear in the safe middle-class subdivision. What made the case even more bizarre was the absinthe bottle that was found next to the woman's carefully positioned body and had been used to bludgeon her to death. Detectives determined that Cat was last seen alive on surveillance footage at a liquor store the night earlier, when she and her husband Jeff went to buy some booze at the end of a date night. Evidence revealed that the couple continued drinking when they got home. The investigation also revealed that Cat sold adult content online. She was very open about it, and Jeff encouraged her. He even photographed her to create content for her fans. Police initially wondered if one of Cat's subscribers had stalked and killed her, but found no supporting evidence. A little over a month after her death, they arrested Jeff in connection with her death. He has maintained his innocence throughout the case and even garnered the support of Cat's parents, who said they knew their son-in-law would never harm their daughter. Several other relatives testified on Jeff's behalf, supporting his claims that Cat died in a tragic drunken fall. But the judge felt strongly that the evidence showed otherwise. After turning down a plea deal that would have spared him from prison time, Jeff was convicted of reckless manslaughter and received a 16-year sentence. 7. Cynthia Knox. In 1988, Harold Lyrella was found stabbed to death in the California home he shared with his then-wife, Cynthia Knox. The killer, Victor Pereira, was convicted of murder and sentenced to 56 years in prison the following year. But the main detective in the case couldn't shake the suspicion that Knox and her lover, John Litchfield, had something to do with it. He also believed that Knox killed her infant daughter to collect on Lyrella's life insurance. Knox and Litchfield fell off the radar in 1992 and managed to evade authorities until 2016, when officials from the Department of State became suspicious of a woman who applied for a passport under the name Christina White. They eventually determined that Knox had stolen the birth certificate of a baby who died and used her name and information to start a new life in Galveston, Texas, where she became a beloved fixture of the community. She and Litchfield, who was also living under a fake name, had started a yacht charter business during the mid-90s and did well for themselves. But their deception eventually caught up with them. Knox received a 3-year prison sentence for the identity fraud, but has still not been charged in connection with her husband or child's death. She claimed that she adopted a new identity to start fresh and escape all the bad publicity she'd received, while prosecutors argued that it was more about escaping accountability for the deaths. After insisting for years that he had been set up, Pereira claimed in a 2012 parole hearing that Knox had paid him $4,000 to carry out the gruesome deed. Whether or not she'll ever be charged remains to be seen. 6. Walter Miller. Cheryl Love was brewing coffee in the kitchen of her Brooklyn home one morning in 2015 when the police showed up and went straight into her bedroom, where her husband of 40 years, Bobby, was asleep. The officers demanded to know his name, and when he told them he was Bobby Love, they ordered him to reveal his real name. Cheryl later told the photoblog Humans of New York, HONY, that she heard Bobby say something in a hushed tone before one of the officers responded, "You've had a long run." She soon learned that her husband's real name is Walter Miller and that he'd come to New York after escaping from a North Carolina prison in 1977. Miller was serving a 25 to 30-year sentence for bank robbery and had been transferred to a minimum security facility for good behavior when he decided to make a run for it. He and Cheryl married in 1985 and raised 4 children together. Cheryl told Honey that she was angry but never hated her husband. In fact, she stood by him when he was extradited to North Carolina and petitioned tirelessly for his release. He was freed in 2016 and has since legally changed his name to Bobby Love. 5. Bobby Parker. Randy Parker was working as the warden of an Oklahoma reformatory in 1994 when his wife Bobby vanished from the couple's home on the prison grounds. She went missing the same day a convicted killer named Randolph Franklin Dial escaped, leading police to initially suspect that she had been kidnapped. But as the clues fell into place, they started to wonder if Bobby had left with Dial willingly. Randy refused to believe that his wife would abandon their marriage and kids for a life on the run with a fugitive, but an inmate reported seeing Bobby get into a van with Dial the day she disappeared. 11 years later, law enforcement finally tracked the pair down at a chicken farm in Texas, where they were living in a mobile home under fake names. Both Randy and Bobby claimed that Dial had drugged and abducted Bobby, and that it held her hostage the entire time they were living together. Prosecutors argued that Bobby was in love with Dial, citing love notes and other evidence as a proof that she was a willing participant in the situation. A jury found Bobby guilty of aiding in Dial's escape. She served half of a 1-year prison sentence and was released. In a display of either foolish or admirable devotion, depending on who you ask, Randy has stood by his wife the entire time. 4. Gregory Fitzgerald. Gregory Fitzgerald and his wife Amy were living in different states in 1993 while pursuing their graduate degrees. But the Newton, Massachusetts natives were on completely different paths. Amy was an army captain who was rising through the ranks of the military as she studied health technology in Vermont. She had no idea that Gregory had been kicked out of college in Texas and was living with a girlfriend. As far as Amy knew, the couple had plans to reunite and start a family as soon as they finished their education. But she was found strangled to death in her bathtub a week before Gregory was scheduled to move in with her. Detectives soon learned that he'd racked up a lengthy rap sheet while living in San Antonio under the name Steven. He had 2 different social security numbers and a secret address that Amy didn't know about, where he received bills and other mail he didn't want her to discover. To this day, nobody knows if Amy suspected Gregory of leading a double life, and his reasons for doing so are somewhat of a mystery. Amy's murder sparked a nationwide manhunt as investigators pieced together Gregory's methodical plan to kill her and slip into obscurity. Law enforcement eventually caught up with him, and he was convicted of first-degree murder. He initially received a life sentence and has maintained his innocence until recently, when he made a deal with prosecutors that involved admitting to the crime in exchange for a reduced sentence of 35 years to life. Fitzgerald could be paroled as early as this year. 3. Jason Collier. In early 2021, a woman named Cecily Steinmetz made a public Facebook post accusing then police chief of Stinnett, Texas, Jason Collier, of leading a double/triple life. She said that she had dated him and that they'd even gotten engaged until she found out he'd used totally bogus annulment documents to prove to her that his previous marriage was over. As if that weren't shocking enough, Steinmetz soon discovered that Collier had several other girlfriends, including at least one who was also under the impression that his marriage had been annulled and that their relationship was exclusive. The post further explained that Collier would tell one of his girlfriends that he was out of town on work assignments while visiting another. Speaking to local station KAMR, Steinmetz said that she received the phony paperwork in a text message and that she'd told Collier she planned to verify through the county that it was real. The judge listed on the document soon confirmed that it was a fake. Texas Rangers slapped Collier with a felony charge of tampering with a government document with the intent to defraud. He resigned from his position as police chief after being put on administrative leave. Steinmetz told MyHighPlains.com that she was inclined to trust Collier because he worked in law enforcement, and that she hoped she learned his lesson about how wrong it is to deceive people on the level that he did. He was sentenced to 2 years of probation and community service, which may seem like a light punishment to some. But the court of public opinion hasn't forgotten about the ordeal, and the damage to his reputation stuck, especially after Dr. Phil invited him on his show and blatantly called him out for his wrongdoings. 2. Andrea Jacobs. While working as a bookkeeper at a medical office in La Grande, Oregon in 2011, Andrea Jacobs began skimming the company's accounts by writing business checks to herself and using the money to pay bills and other expenses. To cover her tracks, she created fake financial records claiming that certain things were more expensive than they actually were. Jacobs took things a step further when she convinced her boss to authorize her to handle a pending tax collection order from the IRS. Instead of actually addressing the matter, she impersonated an IRS employee and pretended that she was there to help sort out the company's tax issues. Even after she was indicted for the crime she committed so far, the 49-year-old continued to pilfer from her employers. In 2019, she was caught depositing checks written out to a dental practice she worked for into her personal bank account. Prosecutors accused her of stealing over $1.1 million from various companies over a 4-year span and using the ill-gotten funds to cover bills, meals at restaurants, frequent travel throughout the state, shopping, and vacations to Chicago and Hawaii. Jacobs has been in custody since last August, when she was caught violating the conditions of her release. She pleaded guilty to several federal charges, including identity fraud, filing a false tax return, and impersonating an IRS employee, and received a 4-year prison sentence. In trying to explain her actions to the judge, she stated that she got caught up in living a double life and that things just spiraled out of control. 1. James Addy. Molly Watson met James Addy after starting a new job as a correction officer in Missouri in 2011. She fell head over heels for her co-worker, who had been married 4 times but seemed eager to give marriage another shot. They'd been dating for 7 years and had finally set a date when Watson was found dead on a remote gravel road just 2 days before the wedding. Police quickly ruled out a robbery and soon learned about some suspicious details surrounding Addy. Watson's family later told ABC News that they'd always felt uneasy about the relationship, to the point where some relatives weren't planning on attending the wedding. When Watson and Addy went to apply for their marriage license, the county recorder asked some questions about his past marriages that seemed to bother him. Addy claimed that his most recent alleged ex-wife Melanie had recently been taken off life support after getting in a car accident. But Melanie was alive and well, and she was still married to Addy. They'd been married for 23 years, and she was completely oblivious to his relationship with Watson until detectives started piecing together the circumstances of her murder. Addy was convicted of first-degree murder and received a life sentence, but continues to maintain his innocence and has appealed his case. Thanks for watching. Would you rather fall in love with someone who avoids talking about their past at all costs, or live next door to a seemingly average middle-class family who moves mysterious packages in and out of their house in the middle of the night? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.